It's no secret that the events of the end of one decade oftentimes inaugurate and presage the events of the ensuing decade. And so it is the case with what many of you are probably familiar with, the clown meme, clown world. And what I want to do is deconstruct that and look ahead and to see what was happening towards the end of the teens and what is likely to happen, not 100% sure, but likely to happen during this decade. The meme of clown world. Sometime in 2018, and more importantly in 2019, the clown world meme became very popular. And for those of you who don't know, clown world designates the disordered, confused, and for many, completely nonsensical nature of our society these days and the world and how it's interpreted. A world where it is claimed, effectively, anything goes, except the things that they say are not allowed to go, so to speak. And clown world, in essence, is a world that you can't make heads or tails out of. There's not much you can do. And in late 2019, this clown world made itself manifest in an online conflict between Contrapoints, who is a very, very large YouTube content creator, and their followers. This individual, Contrapoints, is a transgendered individual. For the purposes of YouTube and what have you, I will make use of they. But in any event, this individual declared themselves to be a female. Well, they were born as a male. And as a consequence, followers and subscribers and people all over the internet got very upset at this individual because by making that statement, they were effectively proclaiming that gender is some sort of binary. But as we all know in clown world, there are no such binaries. Gender is not a binary, and neither is anything else. And whilst it's true that many things, indeed most things, are on a continuum or spectrum, gender is probably one of those issues that is not so much on such a loose and open spectrum. Needless to say, they got into a lot of hot water for that. The reason why I mention this is because it so embodies the meme of clown world. This bizarre place where anything goes until you do something that they say does not go. And they is a reference simply to the political, social authorities that regulate the byways of speech and what we're allowed to say and not say. And here was a great example of these people and their pets effectively turning on each other. One individual overstepped their boundaries on a matter that they deemed important. And this is a running theme, I think, within clown world, and why I think this will be the clown decade. A world where increasingly reality departs from what reality is proclaimed to be. A world where, indeed, you might see an orange and a banana on a table, but instead you will be told that it is a steak and a loaf of bread, all evidence to the contrary notwithstanding. That is the world we are increasingly living in. And because of the allegedly loose nature of the reality that these people operate in, their views can change on a dime, and they can turn on each other and people that they would normally maintain to be of the flock also quite quickly. So effectively, my interpretation of clown world is hot is cold, cold is hot, raining means sunny, oranges are steak, and men are women, and women are men. It's whatever you want it to be. And add to that the various oddities associated with animals, and I'm not terribly versed in this, but people who believe they have spirit icons embodied in some animal, or actually believe they are animals of some sort trapped in human bodies. And the world is a very, very topsy-turvy place indeed. It's not that everything is a binary. Things do exist on a continuum or a spectrum. For example, you can get typically masculine behavior in a woman. It's just that most women wouldn't display that type of behavior for the obvious reason that there are averages, and averages apply to behavior, and averages certainly apply to sex and gender. But it does happen. However, that a woman, for example, might pursue engineering or physics and have more tomboyish interests, or even look more masculine, does not then make her a man. So it goes with many things, and it goes with a spectrum and a continuum. For example, if you think you're secretly a beaver, well, you could argue that there's a continuum of mammals and that humans are on part of that continuum and beavers are too, but there is a significantly large gap between the rodent family, to which beavers belong, and primates, to which humans belong. And the idea that you might in fact be a beaver trapped in a human body might render many people incredulous, because the continuum just doesn't stretch that far. And you could rightly claim that there is a kind of binary between beavers and humans, and that beavers are beavers and humans are humans, and you'll get variation between individual beavers just as you do between individual humans, but neither is the other. These are a couple of the more absurd examples, obviously, that I've experienced and borne witness to, but there's a broader issue afoot here, and that is the continual departure from reality. The problem with departing too far from reality and making proclamations about what reality ought to be and what you like and don't like when it runs in opposition to the quote-unquote real is that you run into structural trouble. What do I mean by this? I mean, put simply, that if you were to imagine the combined effort of multiple architects and engineers working on the design of, say, a skyscraper, and in their designs and their ambitions, they departed from the physics, the mathematics, and the general engineering principles and design principles that have worked functionally in erecting skyscrapers, you will end up with a skyscraper that is less than stable. And, of course, in the worst case scenario, a skyscraper that might not stand up at all. And I make use of this metaphor and analogy because these people are parting from reality in their proclamations about reality. Now, we're not quite at the stage now where these people are claiming you secretly have wings and can fly and therefore should jump off a cliff, and I don't think we'll get quite there, but some of the things that they say simply aren't, and some of the things they proclaim simply aren't true. And the reason why I think this decade will be the decade of clowns is because this decade is likely to present, on the scientific front, new forms of evidence that will cause significant cognitive dissonance in this population of people who are living in opposition to reality. And so what they will be doing is running headlong again against things that they don't like or don't want to hear. And the problem with this, as I stated, is that eventually the edifice doesn't work anymore. Eventually the building, the skyscraper, will collapse. You cannot build a building based on a deficient understanding of physics and engineering. It simply doesn't work. Just as you cannot build a functional society based on premises that do not correlate to the probabilities and distinctions of reality. And what I think is likely to happen, this is not a prophecy, is a last-ditch effort to hold on to ideological rigidity and a further downward spiraling into the insanity that we had all borne witness to in the end of the teens and the ushering in of the 2020s. I think there will be much of the same, if not more, and you will witness many vociferous voices. But ultimately, on the battlefield of reality itself, many of these voices will fail. But the concern, and I've heard this concern, and I am sympathetic to it, is that that's not enough. It's not enough that the manufacturers and purveyors of clown world wish to live incongruously with reality itself, because they will still rail against it, and they will still pursue policies, whether these policies are official or non-official, that are detrimental to people who want to dwell in reality and want to acknowledge that there is something called reality that tethers our existence. And the question then arises, how long can the purveyors of clown world keep on doing this until it all just self-implodes and it turns to fecal matter? Frankly speaking, I don't know. There, of course, is always something to fill the vacuum, but I don't know exactly what that would be. And by then, many people might be so hopelessly confused as to no longer be in a position to rectify anything. And they will not listen, nor will they be interested in listening. In that scenario, there doesn't seem to be much hope indeed. But I think the silver lining here, and I'm going to try to offer one, is that eventually, clear heads are likely to prevail, if only because the skyscrapers won't stand on their own anymore. The structures that create an advanced civilization society, if these are bastardized too far away from the edifice that we call reality, then they will crumble. And then civilization becomes a place that is unfit for everybody. And I simply cannot see people wanting that, of whatever persuasion, whatever political stripe, whatever inclination people have. And then the weight of reality will kick in. But that might indeed be a long way off. I acknowledge that. I think the 2020s will be a very similar decade. It will be the decade of clowns. Therefore, despite scientific progress and strides that are almost certainly to be made, I don't think, at least initially, it will have that much of an impact. And therefore, we're all sort of left treading water in this strange dystopia. This dystopia of werebeavers, orange steaks, and what have you. And I suppose the memes will simply have to sustain us in that time. But eventually, and I'm not likely to see that eventually because I'll be dead by then in all probability, things will correct because you simply cannot maintain a society any more than you can maintain a building if you part too strongly away from the reality that encompasses that society or that building. And I could be wrong, but at least on this general trend, I don't believe that I am. Gentlemen, as always, thank you for watching. And if I'm still alive, I will check you out later. As always, may the gods watch over you. And much more importantly, may the gods give more than they take. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.